So we got the Zhilei Zhang Joe Joyce rematch taking place this weekend. In the first fight, Joe Joyce came in very, very light. Much lighter than he was against Joseph Parker or Christian Hammer or Carlos Takam. He was 256 pounds, which is the lightest he's been for many years. Many fans think that that weight loss was at least partly to blame for Joe Joyce's defeat. They say that he didn't have enough strength to push Zhilei Zhang back and impose himself the way he normally would, the way he did against Joseph Parker, for example. And so Joe Joyce seems to have heeded that because in the interviews I've seen with Joyce over the past couple weeks, he appears to be much heavier again. Weight aside, Joe Joyce made some terrible technical and strategic errors in the first fight that he will obviously need to correct in the rematch. The most glaring and obvious of which was the fact that he kept circling to his right. Now, Joe Joyce typically circles to his right in most fights. It's a very unusual thing for an orthodox fighter to do, and it's probably part of the reason he's been so successful against orthodox fighters, because he's coming at them from strange angles. He's forcing orthodox fighters to move right, which they're generally not comfortable with. And of course, when you move right against an orthodox fighter, you're moving away from their backhand, their right hand. But it's the exact opposite for a southpaw. If you're circling right against a southpaw, you are circling directly into his left hand. And Joe Joyce couldn't seem to make the adjustment in the first fight. He kept on doing it, circling into Zhilei Zhang's left hand, and Zhang was obliging him by continuously hitting him in the face. Will Joe Joyce make the adjustment this time? He should, but old habits die hard. Sometimes when you're so used to doing something for many, many years, it can get baked into your brain. It can get hardwired in there. And so you can train in camp to move to your left rather than moving to your right. But when the punches start flying, you might revert back to circling to your right again. Aside from the weight and circling to his left rather than circling to his right, what else can Joe Joyce do in this fight to avenge that defeat? Going into the first fight, because of Zhilei Zhang's relatively slow feet, I thought that it might be a good idea for Joe Joyce to get up on his toes a little bit early in the fight, the same way he did against Daniel Dubois. Because yes, Joe Joyce has very slow hands, but he's got quick feet. He's nimble when he wants to get around the ring, Joe Joyce. Again, we saw it in the Dubois fight. We even saw it in Joyce's pro debut against Ian Lewison. He's got quick feet when he wants to use them. So I thought, use those quick feet early on against Zhilei Zhang, stay out of the way, wear him down a little bit, frustrate him a little bit, and then maybe come forward and put the pressure on in the second half of the fight when Zhilei Zhang is gassing. Now, that might still be a decent strategy in the rematch. The problem is he's coming, or appears to be coming in based upon the videos I've seen of him lately, very heavy. Maybe heavier than he was against Daniel Dubois. Well, actually, he looks heavier than he was against Daniel Dubois. So I'm not sure how viable that strategy will be at that weight. In which case, he might have to go forward and smother Zhilei Zhang. But you know, it's awkward trying to smother a southpaw. More awkward than it is when you're trying to smother an orthodox fighter. That's from the perspective of an orthodox fighter, because the lead hand clashes. In order to get close to a southpaw fighter, you have to cover more distance with your right hand. Okay, if you're a right-handed fighter, you're gonna have to cover more distance. Your right hand is gonna have to arc further than it would trying to hit an orthodox fighter. Generally, the orthodox fighters who have the most success against southpaws tend to be boxers, not pressure fighters. Pressure fighters tend to be a bit more square, such as the case with Joe Joyce, and it just lines up perfectly for that southpaw left. So I think Joyce is also going to need to get more side on. And again, we did see that against Daniel Dubois. He was a little bit more side on. But should he move around, or should he go in and try and smother Zhilei Zhang? I'm not really sure, to be honest with you. All I can tell you is he needs to be a lot better defensively, and he needs to try and get Zhang into the second half of the fight where Joyce's superior stamina should shine through, because Zhang does seem to have a stamina issue. Now, his stamina issue was absolutely terrible against Jerry Forrest, but he seemed to correct it somewhat in the Filip Hrgović fight. It wasn't great against Hrgović, but it was nowhere near as bad as it was against Jerry Forrest. I mean, he nearly got stopped in the Jerry Forrest fight because he was so tired. But against Hrgović, he did fade in the final, I want to say 2-3 rounds of the fight, but he was still there or thereabouts. He wasn't like out on his feet the way he was against Jerry Forrest. So yeah, Zhang doesn't have the greatest of stamina. Even though it's improved, it's still not going to be as good as Joyce's, I wouldn't have thought. So I think the strategy for Joyce needs to be long-term. Avoid getting hit as much as possible in the early rounds. Try to wear Zhang out somehow, and then really pile it on in the second half of the fight. Maybe he can get victory that way. One thing I don't see in this fight, and maybe I'll be proven totally wrong, I don't see Joyce stopping Zhilei Zhang. Just looking at that first fight, the way the angles lined up for Joyce's power punches, I find it difficult to envision and imagine. I can definitely see, because we saw it first time, Zhilei Zhang stopping Joyce. Not just stopping him with facial injuries, but I could see Zhilei Zhang actually hurting Joyce, because he hurt him in the first round of their first fight. I can see him hurting Joyce and taking him out. Either the referee stepping in to stop it when Joyce is maybe wobbling on the ropes, or Joyce's corner throwing the towel in. I could see that if Zhang can actually connect with enough clean shots. And I don't know, some people are going to say Joyce was maybe weight drained in the first fight because he lost too much weight and that affected his punch resistance. That's a possibility, but Joyce has never had, as far as I'm concerned, this iron chin, this granite jaw that people were making him out to have. Because I saw him get flattened in the amateurs by Sergey Kuzmin. And Joyce wasn't a kid when he got flattened by Kuzmin in the amateurs. He was in his, late 20s? So your chin is not going to be dramatically better in your late 30s as he is now than it was in your late 20s. In most cases, your chin's going to be worse in your late 30s than it is in your late 20s. If Joyce was like a 17-year-old when he got stopped by Kuzmin, then I could say, maybe we can not to read too much into that, because you can gain a lot of strength and you can gain a lot of punch resistance between the ages of, let's say, 17 and 27. But gaining loads of punch resistance between the ages of 27 and 38, I don't remember seeing that before. So I don't think Joyce's chin is any better now than it was when he got stopped by Sergey Kuzmin. Yeah, in one round, he got flattened. I'm not saying Joyce has a bad chin. He obviously has a good chin, but he hasn't been in there up until he fought Zhilei Zhang. He hadn't been in there against any serious punches. When he was in there against Zhang, his legs were all over the place in that first round from them big bang left hands. So I still got to figure that Zhang does have the power to hurt Joyce and stop him. And that's what makes the fight so interesting. Joyce with the strategic changes. Zhang, he can only really do what he did last time. I don't really think Zhang can improve that much on the previous performance. I think Joyce has more room for improvement than Zhang. That's my perception anyway. So I'm expecting a more competitive fight second time around. I'm expecting Joyce to do better. I'm expecting a longer fight. I think Joyce can do enough to convince the judges in his hometown to give him a decision. Whether or not he will deserve the decision in the eyes of most fans is another matter. But I think he can do enough in the eyes of the judges to get the nod on the scorecards. I'll say that about Joyce. So as long as he manages to last the distance and don't get stopped, I think he should win the fight on points. But, that's for Zhang to disprove, get Joyce out of there, or beat him up so badly that the judges can't give Joyce the benefit of the doubt. That's my take on the fight. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And before I go, I want to give a shout out to all the new subscribers to my Patreon page. I cover loads of different topics in my weekly podcast, as you can see on screen right now, from current events to deep dives down the rabbit hole and everything in between. I'm really enjoying the feedback and the discussions we've been having on there lately. So if you'd like to join the conversation, just click the link in the description box below. Are you sick and tired of the mainstream mindset? Does the dogmatic conformity and pathological ignorance have you tearing your hair out in frustration? Then don't be alone. Come and join our brotherhood on Patreon. We stand as a beacon of reason against an army of insanity. You'll gain access to my weekly topical podcast, where we take more deep dives than Jacques Cousteau on an endless variety of subjects. There's also videos, interviews, live Q&As, as well as a vast back catalogue of previous episodes, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen via the Patreon app or download in high-quality MP3. Connect with myself and hundreds of other members in our Element chat group. There's no contract, no commitment, you can cancel at any time, and it's cheaper than a Mickey D's McMuffin. Just head to my Patreon page via the link below this video and select the tier called the Brotherhood of Reason. I'll see you over there.